Hello.
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 Hi, guys.
Hi.
Thanks, everyone, for joining us. This is the Magic Online Wide Beta Q&A. My name is Sean. I'm the Community Manager for Magic. Who are you guys?
I'm Chris Kiritz. I'm the Business Manager for Magic Online.
I'm Ryan Spain. I'm a digital designer for Magic Online.
Cool. Thanks for joining us. You too. Thanks for joining me.
Thank you for joining us.
And hi, Twitch chat channel, assuming you're watching this live. So it's been a little while since we did a wide beta Q&A, and we've had a spotlight in the meantime. And seeing how we're going to have another spotlight, why don't you tell us what a spotlight is and how that went?
Okay. So a spotlight was a chance for us to, focus on the wide beta. We disabled the current client, the V3 client, and opened up the wide beta for everybody as a way to really get hands-on experience with the new client and get a lot of feedback. One of the key drivers was the feedback, and we got a ton of it, which was awesome. It was exactly the kind of thing we were looking for. When you have only one client, only the one client available for the day, you're going to get a lot of users trying it out. Mm-hmm. And so from that perspective, it went very well. We learned a little bit about, how the new client will work when it's the only client. We got a lot of reaffirmation of the things that we're working on right now, which is focusing on stability and the performance issues are the right things to be focusing on. Mm-hmm. And then we also got a lot of good feedback on what people liked about specific features and what they didn't like about specific features and the basic design of the client. So
okay.
I'm sure Ryan got some more same kind of information out of it because we've been going through that feedback since the spotlight.
There's been a lot of great feedback, positive, negative. We have players with strong opinions, and they're not shy about sharing them, and it helps keep things framed for us. So.
Okay. A lot of people are curious about what kind of feedback you got. If there was overwhelming responses against or for one feature over another, or is that information for a later?
That's probably
day?
For a later time.
Okay.
There's a lot of polarizing things about the process, and there's things that people love, and the same thing will be something somebody else does not like, and those are the challenges of design, really.
Going through the feedback, it's very common to see a line of praise about some feature or change, and then the very next thing being somebody who hates that very same feature or change. So it's a balancing act on trying to make sure that we're doing what's right for the widest population possible.
So, what does that tell you, though, when you see somebody that, I love the new red zone or the phase bar or whatever, and then you get another feedback that's, I hate it, why did you change it? How do you weigh that in order to really act on it?
As a designer, it's interesting because first my reaction is I want to please everybody, but you can't, and so the fallback, the quick thing is, we'll just make an option. We'll just we'll go, if we just do an option, we can do it this way, and that can and should be a solution for a lot of things, a lot of big important things, but if you use options as a crutch in design, a couple of bad things happen. First, you fracture your development process so that you have, instead of two people focused on implementing one thing excellently, you get one person doing one thing, the other person doing the other thing, and neither getting the polish and attention they deserve. And you can end up with overwhelming options that most players don't dig into, and you're wasting a lot of work on an audience who doesn't see it. So it's important to resist the urge to just create options for everything, but also understanding that it's also very important to provide key options for people as well. So for me, it's been an exercise in trying to understand what things we really need to create other options for in the future, and which things are about change. I mean, there's a lot of inherent human resistance to change. I'm not saying that because it's not a blanket explanation for everything's fine, you're just resistant to change, but it is also, I need to temper my reading of feedback and understand that there is sometimes it's about change, because there's plenty of comments people have made about I didn't like it this way, and now that I'm used to it, I do. And so that's a reality as well. So also being able to interpret the feedback and make sure you understand how much of that is about change and things being different, and how much of it is, no, this is really less functional this way and needs to be rethought, versus these, you could make an argument either way and it's a huge thing, so let's option it, or you can do it either way and it's not that big a deal, so let's just try to make the best choice we can and go with it.
Yeah. And when we look at the feedbacks, the more detailed and specific feedback is, the more we can action on it, or take action on it, or consider it and make sense. Getting feedback that says, oh, this thing sucks, or I can't use it, doesn't help us a lot. I mean, it gives some just baseline interpretation of how people are feeling about it, but it doesn't help us improve the feature, or whatever it is that they don't like, without knowing what it is about the thing that they don't like. So I know something where it takes me more clicks to filter cards is something that we can look at and go, okay, let's reevaluate that experience and make sure that we're doing it as good as we can, or let's make some notes for the future changes that we'd like to see implemented, because we know that there's a bunch of these kinds of comments, as opposed to collection is just terrible, which we can't do anything
Right.
with.
Yeah. Okay. Makes sense. So that was a decent start. I'm going to go through some of the questions that we collected from the community. I asked ahead of time and got some questions from Twitter and from our official forums, but I'm also keeping an eye on the chat channel here. If any of you guys have questions, go ahead and ask now, and I'll just move through this big list for you guys. Let's see, first up, how are leagues coming along, and when will we get a preview? Every time there's a league question.
Yeah, sure. Let's start with that. So leagues are coming along. I'm not sure when we'll have a preview available. We're still just looking at next year for delivery. So, but today is a day where I spend a good chunk of my day in meetings about leagues. So they're very much moving forward, and it's very exciting.
Yeah, we had a lunch meeting about leagues even today.
We did. So Ryan and I. So
that's what you guys were talking about.
It was. So very exciting to finally have feet on the ground and moving forward on delivering something that people have wanted ever since I've joined the team, which was essentially when we launched in the current client in 2008. So we know that people are excited about it, and we're happy that we're going to be able to finally deliver that product.
Great. What is the timeline for the transition from V3, the current client, to the new client?
So we have an internal timeline. I've announced in my article a couple, months ago now, that we were looking for I want to say it was a July switch over, and we're not going to do that. Right now, our primary focus is on getting stability to a place where we're happy with it. And then from there, once we get to that point, we will, officially determine when we're going to turn off the current client and just go to the wide beta. We are, and I'm sure some of these other questions will come up as we go through this, but there's a lot of things that people want to see changed, a lot of feature requests that we will work on, but a lot of there's a big chunk of that's not going to happen until we're able to be in one client. So. As those specific ones come up, we can talk about them. But we are focusing on stability and performance. The feature set is pretty locked down at this point. Before we turn off the client, it's just going to be major usability issues and performance.
Yeah, let's be clear that when he says the feature set is locked down, we're talking about for getting to a place where we can have V3 off. The feature set is not locked
Not
down
ever.
Oh, no.
for the future. There's
Gotcha.
Yeah.
a lot of the work I'm doing right now with the team is planning our priorities for what we pick up again and get moving on when V3 is off.
Okay. I think kind of another part of that question, as far as transition times, and Worth actually kind of went over this last Q&A that we did, is like people want to know, well, how long are we going to have where the wide beta client's the main client, but we can still get the old client? And if I remember right, basically he said that time is now, where there's not going to be a time where they're both the main clients.
Yeah, no, we've always, well, there's not going to be a time when they're both the main clients. We've always said that we will give people ample notice between the announcement of, yes, we are turning off the current client, and when it actually goes off. And by ample, we mean about a month. So you can expect any time that, we're going to do that. People will have about a month before they are required to switch over to the new client. So, I mean, I wouldn't wait unless to try the wide beta and get familiar with it, because the change is going to happen, and there's no reason to wait. So,
okay. Here's one from the chat channel. Jay Turfy says, is there a functional reason for the red zone, or will there be an option to always close the red zone?
The functional reason for the red zone, the red zone paradigm, I'll call it, is about clarifying combat in terms of attackers and blockers, and what creatures are blocking, what creatures are attacking, and what creatures are blocking which of the attacking creatures. I think it is very successful at accomplishing that goal of saying, if the creature is touching this zone, is moved up into this area, it is attacking, and if that blocking creature is also touching this zone and is directly across from that attacking creature, that's what it's blocking. And I think it's pretty undeniable that it does clarify that scenario a lot better than the current client does, than V3, where attackers have the word attacking written on them, and there's a lot of ghosting to show blocking, and you have to, there's the arrows are a whole other controversy I'm sure we'll get into, but
Oh yeah, we will.
but if you have multiple creatures of the same type and multiple are attacking and blocking in the V3 client, you have multiple instances of the same creature visually represented on the battlefield, and to figure out which one it is, you have to roll over to see where the arrows are pointing to even understand. The red zone accomplishes all of that without that, and there's costs there as well that I have been wrestling with and weighing since I got here, and the red zone was already in effect when I started, and it was a point of debate even then. But it really does accomplish what it set out to do in terms of clarifying attackers and blockers, and the biggest costs are in vertical real estate on the battlefield and of the card movement to get those cards into position. Is this, I spoke earlier about when do we fall back on options, and when do we just have to pick something and make it the best we can for the most people we can. This may be something that qualifies for those option types. Certainly it's not it's not going to be an immediate thing. But is there a world in which we offer an advanced view that doesn't, that locks the cards down in place, but at the cost of clarifying combat? Perhaps, that's all that stuff gets discussed and is in consideration.
Fair enough.
I mean, one of the, going to the red zone and kind of just the design direction for the battlefield and the duel scene in general is, making sure that where possible and where it makes sense, we use some of the techniques that players use when they play in the paper game. And people move cards to indicate blockers, and then to separate creatures that aren't attacking from creatures who are attacking. And so we try to do that where possible. We do that to some degree with the how we attach auras and equipment as well, a little bit differently than a lot of people do it. But it's to kind of reaffirm those associations that players have from paper Magic and present that in the digital form too.
Yeah, it is a much cleaner experience for the new Magic Online user, and we've have ample evidence that the red zone does clarify some very confusing UI stuff for a lot of our players, but for experienced Magic Online players, it's jarring to switch to a different paradigm like that.
Here's another one from Chad from Antiphos. You said that there will be no new features, at least until the current client's shut off. Wide beta becomes the main client. Does that mean that you don't intend to make trade or buddy list functional? Both are currently strictly worse in every way.
I would challenge that notion, but there's the new feature means taking something that doesn't exist and making it exist, not ironing out bugs in things that do exist.
Okay. So the answer is it might get attention before then. It's
sure. It's gonna depend on what it is. Like, we are addressing functional issues as part of this, but the primary focus is going to be on stability and performance.
Okay.
So anything that we find is egregious to that affects gameplay significantly, we will obviously take in as those things come up. But anything that's a major scene redesign or anything that is a brand new feature or something that doesn't currently exist will be high on the list of things depending on the priority after we turn off V3. So
okay, great. Here's one from Found Omega. I'm sort of paraphrasing here, but what's going to be different now and the next wide beta spotlight, and how much effort's going towards fixing small issues versus adding features? This is sort of along the same lines, but I guess he's basically asking like where that focus is between now and those who experienced the wide beta client during the last spotlight and what they can look forward to going forward, I guess.
Again, primarily increased stability and performance. Those are the pillars of development right now.
Yeah.
And because we recognize that we don't have anything if we don't have those things, regardless of what you may think of any design changes, of any feature differences. None of it matters if we're not stable and the performance is not where we want it to be. So.
Right. I mean, when we look at what's coming up, we have a major deployment next week, which is probably the first big one since the last spotlight, which addresses a ton of stability issues. You're going to see some small tweaks that are safer things, like we're adjusting the theme to be a little bit less bright. So because that was a big complaint, is that if you're only going to have one theme, let's make it a little bit more universal. Some of the bugs around deck building and adding cards to decks and card substitution will be addressed as well. So it's not like it's only stability. We are going to continue to address some of the major issues that people are encountering. So
great. Let's see more from the forums. We got a ton of questions from the forums, really good ones. Let's see. Here's one from Psychotron 14. Will a changing menu to allow a user to view the classifieds while in a trade? It can be difficult to gauge the value of a card during a trade if you're unable to search the classifieds.
It's an interesting request. I'll put it on the list to consider. Yeah, we definitely want you to be able to have access to all the information you need.
Yeah, trade's one of those things that we know needs some work, and we'll have some additional work done afterwards. But right now, you get into the trade process itself, and we think it's pretty good. And it was one of those scenes where we looked at doing do we want a floating window or do we want it just to be locked in the client? And for that scene specifically, we chose to keep it in the client. So at that cost, it replaces the classified scene. So it's clearly an interesting suggestion to have on them.
Yeah.
Text Rob from the forums wants to know if there are plans to incorporate more docking options in the client for the different game windows.
That's funny. That came up at lunch today. Yeah, I mean, the Windows paradigm is really useful in a lot of situations. If you have a larger monitor, the ability to have chat floating off somewhere else or on a second monitor, have the main scene open and the game open at the same time, or a couple games open. Really flexible for people with the real estate. It gets a little bit more difficult when you're on a smaller screen, and we are very aware of that problem.
Yeah, I think that's where we get a lot of our feedback is from people with smaller resolutions.
And what's really interesting is I play at work. I have 2 monitors set up, but at home I'm on a laptop, and so going back and forth, it's challenging. I think another thing is that making sure that we show people one of the things we haven't done well in the wide beta yet that's coming as we get closer to turning off the client is teaching people how to use the client itself. So, there are a lot of docking options available if you know how to use them. For chat, you can, if you have a big enough resolution, you can dock on any side of the window, or any main nav. We don't let you dock the game window, but it just floats. You can float it on top, or manage it via Windows.
Right. When I'm using multiple monitors, I'm generally putting different windows wherever I want them on multiple monitors. And when I'm on my laptop, I dock all of my chat such that I only ever have 2 windows, just the main navigation window and whatever game I'm in.
Yeah. So, and teaching people how to do those things is definitely on our list as we get closer. It's time to start, easing that transition, and rather than throwing people into the new client without any direction, it's going to be nice to be able to have some videos or some better help files. So say, hey, here's how to do stuff. I know that as we get closer, the orcs in client are ramping up as well, and so as we add features, they're getting up to speed, and they're going to be able to help people more and more.
Great. Here's an interesting question from Darkest Mage. Hi, Darkest Mage. Magic streamers have had a massive problem with people logging on the Magic Online and messaging opponents with the contents of their hands, ghosting. Is there a plan to implement some kind of invisible mode so that the name of your opponent is not shown? Basically, sounds like that's really all that needs to be done.
That's very specific. I will say that we recognize that the client in either of its forms at this point has not been tailored well to the needs of the streamer, which has been something that's really exploded even in the last year. I'm not saying it's started in the last year, but certainly its relevance has just skyrocketed. And so we have a team looking into what we need to do to provide more optimal experiences for streaming and coverage when it comes to Magic Online. So
okay, cool. I know that probably falls under the realm of new features.
Right.
So, but that is
not imminent. But the main takeaway here is that the importance of streaming is well known, but we're playing a little bit of catch up to acknowledge that with our efforts in the client.
Okay, cool. Here's let's see. Oh, got that one. Sorry. Joe Cole would like to know will we get the notepad function we had earlier in beta?
There's no definite timeline. I really liked that feature. What I'd like to see is when that comes back, also bring back notes for your blocked list and your buddies list as well. That's definitely on my list of features to bring back.
Okay. He had another one. Will we get back the ability to make items tradable or untradable while we're in a trade session?
So I saw that, and that's not a thing that you can do now, and that's not a thing that's coming anytime soon.
Okay.
The only time that I've been playing since the original beta, and I have vague memories of being able to do that within a trade, but the consequence was that forced refresh of the trade partner, it was awful. Not that that's not a solvable problem, and when we tackle trading on a more fundamental level than just the client side interface for it, that's the kind of thing that will be high on my list to deal with. But it's more of a part of a trade overhaul, not part of a new client UI redesign.
All right. Cervantes in the forum, I would like the option to move and resize my graveyard. Any word on when this will be implemented?
Ryan Spain would also like that option.
Yeah, that was
Yeah.
one of my
I would
first
like
pieces of feedback on the client when I got my first hands-on was why can't I pop out my graveyard? And we were close to getting it done before V3 off, but ultimately it encompassed enough of a complex code base situation that we just couldn't put in that kind of risk for where we were in the cycles. But it's basically docking and undocking zones is a layer of tech that the dual scene could really use for more than just the graveyard. There's lots of ways that could be applied. I know that people have been asking, well, I would like to be able to move the phase bar, and I want to be able to do this to this zone. And really,
that is a question on here.
a lot of that desire for customization of the dual scene comes down to the technology to dock and undock different aspects of the dual scene to different areas on it. So basically, hear you, want it, need it. Certain decks feel like you just don't even want to play them without that ability, like Dredge or whatever, and we really want the full Magic experience to be available to our players. So consider pop-out zones and dockable graveyards and that kind of thing to be a high priority for me, at least, after V3 off.
Great. Here's another kind of long-term sounding question, since it kind of involves new features, but it's from the forums. Homer Stuff. What are your plans for updating multiplayer games, including lack of screen space, partners sitting diagonal, 30 life, etc.? Are these... Oh, here we go. Oh, yeah. Are these things a priority fix before the beta goes live?
Not before the beta goes live, no.
Okay.
But we honestly, multiplayer was in horrible shape a year ago. Just an unplayable state is fair to say, I think. We've put a lot of effort into getting it from there to a place where, for the needs of most multiplayer scenarios, it does a solid job. We have a lot of internal multiplayer Magic Online players that we tap for feedback and thoughts and opinions. So we've made a lot of headway, and we will continue to do so, but not until after V3 off at this point.
Slayer, yes, you are allowed to just ask questions.
No.
Wait, what?
I didn't agree to that.
Only good questions, though. Here's one from Timotheos. Is the client ever going to remember the various sword options we apply between sessions? Collection filters.
That's another one of those very tricky design decisions that falls more on the side of make a call and go with it rather than go into options land with it. When I started, the client didn't remember anything. There was no, we call it sticky settings around here. So no sticky settings, and everything reset to default after every log off, basically. So I made an effort to note everything in the client that could conceivably be remembered from session to session or from game to game, and make a pass on defining which ones we wanted to be sticky and which ones we didn't. And things like filters in collection were a point of debate, and we landed on not saving those types of things because if someone filters to show only their commons and then logs off for a month, they can come back on, and if that setting is sticky, it's a very confusing moment where a player doesn't know how to get out of the situation that they created a month ago. Okay. And so that was a deliberate design decision. I'm always willing to reconsider and think about those types of design decisions and whether or not they're fulfilling the function intended. But that was the reasoning behind not making that kind of stuff sticky. But yet at the same time, making trade filters sticky was for me, because I know that when I did a lot of trading, I always wanted to go back in and have the filters that I'd applied to that last trade apply to the next one, since I'm generally searching for the same thing. So, there's something that's, I think, quite a lot better about Shiny Trade than V3 Trade, for example.
Yeah, and again, Ryan mentioned it a little bit. There's a lot of internal discussion around the balancing act between creating a client that is the ideal client for a power user versus a newer user. And those audiences are very different on what they want and what is useful for them. So in cases like sticky settings, we've erred a little bit on the side of caution and making sure that people are not going to get themselves into a state that they can't get out of. And where that applies to more than just a newer player, we've kind of broadened that scope. So something like filters, even if I'm gone for, I'm a regular user and I've, put some filters in and I'm just gone for a week and I come back and my first instinct is, where's my collection? Or, because I haven't remembered that I've set those filters, and then it's like, oh, kind of an aha, gotcha moment for a second. You can just avoid by knowing that, hey, when you go into collection, you're going to have to do some filtering.
Or, a feature I would like to have, instead of just deciding that filters will be sticky settings, actually have savable filter sets, so that you have a drop, that you can take any set of filters that you've created, take basically a snapshot of your current filter situation and store it as a name. This is my, red deck wins baseline, and so you can just turn that on and look at all the cards you would.
That's a cool idea.
Normally, yeah. So that's where, as a designer, you try to solve it with features that make sense for the power user without disrupting the newer user. So
okay. Let's see. Will either the submit or confirm trade buttons in the trade screens be moved so that they're not both in the exact same position? Apparently, it's sometimes easy to accidentally confirm a trade if you double click, because they'll both be in the same spot.
We're looking at button location and trade in particular, where it's been tricky. Again, the design conflict here is that you want, to the best of your ability, to provide consistency in the location of buttons throughout a complex system like Magic Online, so that if confirm is always in the lower right, you just kind of know that that when you're done with something, that's where you look for that button. The more you stray from that, the less cohesiveness you have in the UI design. But at the same time, we don't want to create a scenario where misclicks are common. So we understand that that's been reported by a lot of people, and so we're taking a look at what we can do to make that as consistent as possible, but without the inadvertent click errors.
Here's one from Andrew in the forums. A few weeks ago, there was some change in the white beta about hidden defaults for creating games. One of these is that if you don't specify one of 1 win or 2 wins for the match structure, it creates a 2-win game by default. And this sort of goes against the existing norm for the casual players out there who are really used to just clicking the button, getting a single match game. Is that going to be changed, or maybe sticky the selection?
So the change in the play lobby that happened recently was more along the lines of, prior to the change, each of the different skill levels were hard-coded to have a certain set of defaults, and they weren't changeable.
So the just for fun room and the tournament practice?
Right. So just for fun was, you're going to play a single game match, and it's going to be always 25 minutes, and that's going to be it. Have fun. And the tournament practice was the other way. It was always a 2-game or a 2-win match. So we added back one of the things that we heard a lot about was, people weren't happy that they didn't have the options available in the play lobby, and we wanted to make sure that we brought those options back, but we also still wanted to maintain the ability for you to essentially, the goal of the play lobby is, particularly constructed, is choose a deck, hit play, and then you're paired up with somebody. So we have to have some secret default settings that happen to make that work. When we added all of the options back in, we kind of also just baseline made all of the rooms the same again, to make it easier to know which options you should be setting what in which room. So, it's not something we certainly could go back and look at. There is something nice about just being able to know that, hey, this is a room where this is kind of game is going to happen. But again, it's balancing player experience versus having options available. And this is a case where we went back to having more options available.
Exabyte would like us to make a Yo Beta's so wide joke. I don't know any Yo Beta's so wide joke. Yo Beta's so wide, it needs 2 spotlights to see the whole thing.
Winner, ding ding ding.
Yeah, all right.
Can't even compete with that.
Nah, yeah. Okay. To think of a better one, let me know.
I say put that to the chat stream.
Yeah.
But I want to hear your best Yo Beta so wide jokes.
Let's see. Text drop in the forums. Do you plan to add offline messages to users?
Yes, very much so.
Great.
Again, when we look at the priority of all of the things that we want to add back in, certainly offline messaging is one that has many uses, and it's one that actually want to, when we bring it back, we want to expand on it from what's currently available, which is one of the reasons why we decided to de-scope it now, so when it comes back, it's actually usable and better than what is in the current client.
Okay. Let's see. Sorry, I just saw one. Chad Whitey in the chat channel. Will Miko ever be on a system like Xbox One or PS4? Even if it's, say, 5 years from now. So maybe like PS5, 5 years from now.
I don't know, those console cycles are getting longer.
Yeah. I mean, we evaluate platforms and look at what's going to make sense for Magic Online. Right now, our focus is on the current client, or the wide beta client, and making sure that we can get that shipped and available on the PC clients.
Okay.
So, and afterwards, who knows?
Yeah, I think Worth would classify that one as a pie in the sky sort of. If you could have everything in the world, then it would be on all platforms ever.
Yeah, Worth is always looking outside of where we are and to where we could be and want to be, and those things are effectively always on the table for consideration when we're figuring out where to go next.
Let's see. Here's one from Pirate Ammo. When playing, I'd like to be able to hover over a card and scroll the mouse wheel up to enlarge it, sort of Duels of the Planeswalkers style. Is there any chance of implementing that?
There's a chance that's been suggested. It just hasn't been a high priority feature, but I think that speaks to something that's been on my mind a lot lately, that in a more general way is about easing the transition from Duels to Magic Online.
Yeah.
And recognizing where our controls are different and aligning them better is going to be part of that effort, ongoing effort to make Magic Online a place that Duels players feel like they get and understand and feel welcome. And it can be the little things like that that just they expect to work because they've been doing it this way on Duels. And so, that's definitely one of those.
Cool.
Yeah. I mean, and that's another one of those things where I've mentioned it before, where it's going back and teaching people how to use the client and making sure that they know all of the tools available to them. Right? I mean, I'm not sure what Pirate Ammo's experience is with the client, but there's currently 3 ways to zoom a card. And so, teaching people that you can use, the Z key or both mouse buttons together or clicking the center mouse wheel.
I actually didn't know that both mouse buttons together.
Both mouse buttons together.
All right.
Even our moderator learned something. So, and I would say the tricky part about that, the whole goal of making Magic Online more familiar feeling to duels players is that they're very different beasts, and the main reason that that's not there right now is that the scroll wheel in Magic Online in collection scene scrolls the collection, scrolls cards up and down, and that's not something that Duels the Planeswalkers has to do, and so they can use scroll wheel for zooming. The second, if we make that possible in the duel scene, then you get to the other designer chagrin of inconsistency, that zooming works one way in one place and another way in another place, and so these are why my job's not easy.
All right, cool. That was from Fire Demo. Like I said, he's been active in the Duels forums and the Magic Online forums, and it is interesting to see people give feedback after coming over from Duels and playing Magic Online, and you hear comments like, where are the combat effects, and why isn't the battlefield slanted, in 3D, and it just, like, that if you ever slanted the battlefield in Magic Online, you'd have
there would be a riot.
Pitchforks.
Again, the Duels is really very much a walled garden of Magic, very hand-selected, hand-pruned. We're going to give you this subset that works really well for this thing we've created. The second that you say, let's make, say, 12,000 plus cards all work in this one environment, and it's just a different challenge.
Trickier, yeah.
It's a different challenge, but it is a very important challenge of making sure that we transition players well from one realm to the other. So it's an important thing.
Let's see. Here's one that I've seen a lot of different questions that sort of touch on the same topic. So I'll try to sort of encapsulate everybody's question into one. Here's a question from the forums from Wendigo. Can you make it so that hover text doesn't block input to the underlying card? And the second part, if there are plans to adjust the hover, like the time delay. And this sort of touches on other like time delayed things. There's another question in here, for example, where somebody's asking about highlights. Oh, Gabo Chidillo. Sorry, I'm like bombarding you right now, but when you mouse over a card, it instantly highlights, giving you an instant response. When you click a card, however, there's often a half a second delay where anything happens, and it's small delays like this that make the client seem unresponsive, and it's not really clear whether it's part of the UI or some kind of delay from the server that doesn't happen with the current client.
That's a load of stuff.
Take your time.
Certainly, the pop-up interfering with clicking drives us nuts internally too, and where it's a high priority issue. I believe
next week.
Next week it should be addressed.
Cool.
At least partially addressed for the short term. So I believe next week we are making it so the hover text will appear on right click only, so it won't ever get in your way, but in order for you to see it, you're going to have to interact with it. I know, going back to the discussion on options versus trying to come up with something that works for everybody, hover text is one of those things that has come up quite a bit in internal discussions where we're looking at, all right, is there a timing that works for everybody? I know that the current client has some settings where he allows you to manipulate some of those things and change your hover text or your help text pop-up delay.
Right.
And so, again, going back to how many options is too many options. Like there are going to be things that people, the vast majority of people will never click, but for it can be a big deal for the people who are trying to optimize their experience. So again, we're just trying to balance. What is worth adding complexity to an account or an option scene, and how deep can we hide some of those options and still make them relevant and discoverable versus, what can we settle on something that's good for everybody?
Yeah. As far as the click delay and the responsiveness, again, that is among the top priority with stability, and we actually talk internally about the difference between from a development standpoint of perceived performance issues versus actual performance issues, with the understanding that from a consumer standpoint, it doesn't matter; they're the same thing, right? So if there's something in the way that something has been coded that there's inherent lag in what's going on, that's actual performance. But there are cases where the animation that's being used might just be a little long,
Takes
or might
a quarter of a second.
or that we're
something.
trying to fade something in to look cool, but in doing so, we're creating perceived performance. And perceived performance is important for us to find, because it's more easily fixable. If it turns out that just an animation is causing a problem, we can change the animation and don't have to change any underlying code, and that's far less risky. So we are looking for those types of things to patch up so that the whole experience feels smoother.
Cool. Okay. Let's see. Let's see. Can you make the reveal in Exile Zone open up automatically when a card is revealed / exiled? At the moment when someone reveals a card or a card is suspended, you don't actually see it because the zones are closed by default.
So the goal. This is another really tricky one, because another problem we've been fighting with the beta client for a while is card movement. And and if you pop out the zones every time something goes into it, you are going to create constant resizing of the battlefield, which is
That's going to slide open and everything else.
It's a far more generally a far bigger problem than anything else. But on our big three are suspend, cascade, and rebound. Those are the three mechanics that send stuff into the exile zone that becomes really relevant. And if you're not, and it can happen without you understanding what's going on. And so we're definitely looking at ways to address that issue, but in doing it without just adding more battlefield movement. So right now there's we call the toast messages, the little pop-up messages that come up. So when you do suspend something, there's a toast message, but if you miss that, then you might not notice at all. We're talking about things like making the icons for the exiled zones and those side zones blink or be noticeable when something goes into them. But anyway, I'm with you in the sense that this is a problem that needs to be addressed. I find when I play Modern Masters or Cube, inevitably something ends up suspended that I didn't realize was there until the first suspend counter comes off of it, and that's not acceptable. So
Okay. Surprise. Rift Bolt. Squirrel Decker in the chat channel has a question. I believe it's been brought up before, but it's concerning automatic trading, sort of marketplace style that you see in some games like
Sure.
MMOs or whatever.
auction house is
Auction
what
houses,
people generally
right.
refer to when they're talking about it.
Yeah.
So,
Do you have a specific question, or is it
Well,
just the
can
usual?
we have them?
Yeah, can we have it?
Yeah.
so we know that how trading works in general is due for an overhaul. And we're going to be looking at ways at some point in the future on just adjusting the whole trading paradigm in Magic Online at some point to make it easier for players to use and make it more useful for the majority of players. This project, which is simply about creating an interface that is friendlier, doesn't have the ability to go through and do the back end work that would be required to do any significant.
That's more than a UI
Yeah.
project.
So, I mean, trading is very dependent on the back-end infrastructure, and until we have a project in place that addresses that, the classified system that Magic Online currently uses is going to be the system for the foreseeable future. We know that it has limitations, and we want to provide an experience that's better for players, so that they can actually, interact with their collections and trade more easily. So,
Okay.
but yes, we get that question a lot, and it's
Yeah.
tough because
I'm
it's
sure
not part of this project.
there's got to be some people watching who could recite that answer for us by now.
Yeah, it was asked a while ago in the chat, and I'm sorry we didn't answer it right away because I knew that it's one that we've had a lot. So I did want to get that answer out there, at least for this recording. Let's see. By the way, this is the fifth Magic Online Q&A or fourth one.
I'll take your word for
Okay.
it. My life is Q&A.
The point is, there are recordings out there. We've got them on the official Magic the Gathering YouTube channel, and if you look in the Twitch channel past broadcasts, you'll find them, though YouTube's probably easier to find. So if your question wasn't answered here, it's possible it was answered in a previous Q&A, and it's worth looking at those older recordings. Sorry, now let me find you a couple more questions. We've only got 5 minutes left. And I'm not talking. Okay, here's one. Are we going to get all the right-click context menus back, i.e. the hello, good luck, nice play ones in chat, and the add, remove 2 or 4 or 10 cards during deck building, trade, and sealed deck building?
The ones during trade are already back in, at least internally, so that's something being addressed. The social ones during games have never been in this client and are, I mean, consider the things that we've been talking about and the features that rise up to high importance, and it just never seems to rise up high enough to.
I like the smiley faces.
Yeah, shortcuts for creating, those kind of icons are one thing. Right-clicking in a dual chat to send automated messages is another, and the former is in the works, and the latter is not risen up to that point yet. But I'd like to see it. I kind of want to see custom ones that can be abused. Right?
Yeah. I mean, custom ones that follow the generalized rules
Right.
of general code of conduct. But yeah, I mean, I don't think. Again, we're talking about priority, and it's something like that is a nice.
You know what I might change it to? A little side tidbit about R&D. The R&D, people. Good game is this common phrase people use at the end of a game. During R&D playtesting, we don't say that. We say thanks for the game, and I love it. It's just
I didn't know
perfect.
that.
Yeah, thanks for the game.
I've been going
Thanks
down
for
there
the
and saying good game. You probably all look at me like,
Don't worry.
guy.
The point is, like, saying thanks for the game is a nice expression that the quality of the game becomes immaterial to the fact that you're thankful that the person engaged in it with you. So that's my new
That's
go-to.
wonderful.
Yeah.
I like it. So you sort of touched on the icons in chat. I know that was a question I can't find on my sheet right now, but people would like to know when the icon shortcuts are going to make it back into the chat channels.
In the future.
Yeah.
So the existing functionality, the icons, all of them, the smileys and the card icons,
The card icons, yeah.
card linking, so it shows up, the auto card as it's called, all of that stuff we want to come back.
Great.
And will come back. Those are, key features for using, communication tools and for building community that need to come back. So they will be back. We know that we're not done with where chat is. It's usable, but it is not. It's certainly not finished. So.
Okay. Oh, that was a question from Timotheos. Thank you, Timotheos. All right. When will themes be put back in?
That's a good question. Themes were a little bit more complicated than they seemed on the surface.
Can you say why they were taken out?
A couple reasons. Several of them weren't at the quality level that we wanted. And then there are just some additional issues with themes in general as far as how they interacted with the client. So in order to just kind of, let's focus on one thing, let's work on, paring down, instead of working on 20 themes, let's just focus on one, let's clean it up. Next week we'll see the next iteration on the Gideon theme that kind of removes some of the textures and color and changes the colors that people may not enjoy currently. And then from there, when we do introduce themes, we're going to make sure that when we add them back in, that they are higher quality. They don't have some of the issues as far as text color choices being hard to read on certain backgrounds and that kind of stuff. So, the ability for players to customize their experience, particularly visually, and make it something enjoyable is something that we want to bring back.
Great. Okay. I think that's it. We're out of time. So, there are still questions, and we're going to have another Wide Beta Q&A soon. We're already starting to plan it.
Yeah.
So, keep your eyes out for that. I'll make another forum thread when that happens, and you're all free to come into the official forums, leave your questions for us, and we'll answer as many as possible. And thanks for all the good questions this time. We got a lot of really, really good questions. And thanks, you two, for answering as many as I could spit out at you.
Yeah, thanks for hosting.
Yep. Thanks everybody for being here and for caring as much as you guys do.
Yeah. And you can always get us in the forums. I'm in there pretty much every day. I may not respond every day, but I'm in there every day. We have a feedback form that you can find online. You just look at the last Spotlight article. You can find the link to that. Pretty much on any Wide Beta article, we put that link on. It's always useful. You can just go in, and if you just have specific information, you can go into that form and just go to the scene that you want to give us feedback on and just submit it that way. So don't feel like you have to save up all of your feedback and put it all in at once. You can just
submit it as many times as you want.
We look at it all the time, and then I'm available on Twitter, Kiritz at Kiritz, and you can always just shoot us messages. We're pretty responsive.
And if you're not following Magic Online on Twitter, we give announcements and new news, maintenance downtime information, all that good stuff. And follow us on Twitch while you're watching us. Let's see. I think that just about does it. Everyone, thank you for tuning in, and we'll catch you next time.
All right.
Thanks.